Hey everybody, welcome to J Stern Designs. Today what I'd like to do is show you a really simple, modern looking front pocket design. If you've been following along with me, I'm working on my own happy pants. I'm teaching happy pants a lot this spring. So I'm trying to come up with other cool things and different ways you can finish your pants, different details. Today, what I want to start with is this really kind of polished looking front pocket. The front pocket opening has room to make it functional. And instead of having a front pocket facing that you sew to the edge and turn it to the inside to make the front side of the pocket, I used a piece of bias garment fabric. So this is the same fabric as the pants, and I cut it on the bias. You can see it's got a little bit of stretch to it. Okay, and I basically sewed it like I was finishing the edge of a quilt or a neckline. I just used that to finish the edge. Then I added a pocket bag, the back pocket bag, to be able to create the pocket. I'm going to turn it so you can see the inside. You can see this is a nice, clean, finished look. The pocket bag goes from the side seam all the way to the zipper seam allowance. And you can see I've stitched through the front leg through the pocket bag to actually make the pocket. So that's why it's only one piece, because you're sewing and you have top stitching showing and defining that outer edge of the pocket. So it's really nice and simple. This shape of your actual pocket, you could make that any shape you want. You can make it as big or as little. You know, you can make the back pocket piece as big or as little as you want. If you'd like details on how to design this pocket, I did a live stream during a FabFit Friday, and it's in my Facebook group, J Stern Designs Fitting and Pattern Perfection. And I put a link in the description below, so if you want to join us there, please do, because I do live stream every Friday. All the details for designing this pocket are there. All right, so here's the other leg. And like I said, I cut a 1.5 inch strip of the same fabric, but on the bias, so it's stretchy. So our first step is we are going to sew this strip of fabric to the edge of the front pocket. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at the side seam edge on this one. And I'm just going to position my strip so the edges are even. And I'm going to sew at approximately 3/8 of an inch from the edge. And you notice I'm not pinning anything. I'm just going to work with it a little at a time. So I'm going to start stitching. I'm going to back tack here, a couple stitches, and then I'm going to start stitching. And I'm going to stop and make sure that the edge of my binding and the edge of my pocket are even as I sew to it. It's going to require me to stretch it around a little bit. All right, and then I'm just going to finish it up on the waist line side of it. All right, so let's take a look at what we have here. Okay, so right now it kind of just looks like that. So I am just going to press it. I want to press it up towards the opening or away from the seam, and I'm just going to use the tip of my iron. I'm just going to press that. Okay, so it's nice and the seam is nice and pressed. Then I'm going to turn it this way, and what I want to do is I want to press this down and on top of my stitching, basically. So I'm just going to give it another press like this. And I'm going to look at it from the right side. So the way this should be, it was 1.5 inches. So I should just have enough under the ditch or right where the seam is to stitch through there and catch it. So I'm just going to give that a nice press. All right, and then I'm going to take some pins and I'm going to pin right along my ditch like this. Probably only need on this maybe 3 pins or so, one in the middle and then one on each end. And then I'm going to turn it around and make sure that my pins are catching the edge of the binding on the inside. Let's look at that. All right, so you can see my pins are catching it, which is perfect. And they're all about a generous 1/16 of an inch or a very scant 1/8 inch away from the edge. All right, so that's perfect. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the sewing machine and I'm going to sew this. All right, so I want to stitch this right on the ditch. I want to be really close here. So I'm going to take my time. I'm going to make my stitch length approximately 3. So I'm going to back tack a couple stitches, and then I'm just going to stitch really close to the bottom edge of that binding. Details like this really make or break the quality of your finished garment. So take your time and sew slowly and neatly, because if you think about it, the opening of this pocket is very small. It's not a long distance to sew, so you can take your time and it still won't take you a long time. Get rid of my pin as I come to it. All right, so I'm just going to give this a nice press, like that. Here's my favorite thing about this pocket technique. It's essentially done, because what we're going to do now is we're going to take the pocket bag and we're going to line it up with the zipper and waistline edges, like this. And essentially, I'm just going to put a couple pins in here to hold it along the top, because that matches 1 to 1. I'll put a pin over here. All right, now notice over here on the side that I'm going to cut this extra off so you can see what I'm talking about here. When I designed this front pocket opening, I designed it to have some room to put your hand in. So you can see that it extends out past the, this leg extends past the facing. So when you go to pin it together, you just bring that in like that. Okay, and you even those up. And then when you're wearing your pants, you'll be able to stick your hand in there without killing yourself. You'll have that little bit of ease. All right, so I've got that pinned. I'm just gonna baste along the top edge to hold the front leg and pocket bag together. So I'm just gonna stitch along the waistline edge here so I can get rid of those pins. I'm also gonna start stitching at the base of the pocket bag, and I'm just going to stitch in right here along the side seam just to hold it. All right, so I've just basted these edges just so that stays put and I won't have to worry about pricking myself on a pin. But notice now I've got this ease in here. And when you put it on a body, let me just show you. See, it won't fly out on you when you're wearing it, because when you're in there, it will lay nice against you, against the curve of your body. But flat, it does stick up a little bit. So I have a tip for getting this exact design onto the other leg. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use my chalk liner, and I am just going to chalk along my stitching of my first leg. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to line up the front pocket like this. So I'm lining up the top edge, the corner edge, the front pocket, and then I'm going to just tap it and see how it transferred the line from the chalked one onto this leg. So now I have my stitching line, and it will be a mirror image of the other side. So that's how you can do that. I'm just going to make it a little bit darker here. All right, so before you stitch this down, it's really important to pin it down. And you don't want to trap all of this ease over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of lift up the pocket a little bit. And then I'm going to put in some pins starting down here at the base of the pocket bag. And I'm going to pin all the way to the pocket opening, kind of on an angle like this. Because again, I don't want to trap all of the ease on that lower edge of the pocket. So I've got one there. And then I'm going to pin over here too. It's preventing the leg from sliding around on that back pocket bag. Okay, so I just did 2. I think that's enough. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start top stitching. And I'm just going to start on the very side edge. I'm just going to follow my line. And I'm going to have my stitch length be about 3. Back tack. I'm just following the line. Now the base of this stitching is hitting the very bottom edge of the pocket bag underneath. Okay, and then I'm coming around. And if you need to lift up the presser foot and let the fabric relax for a second, you know, that sometimes helps get around a curve. I'm going to move this pin out of the way now. All right, and now I can just follow this right up to the top. All right, let's take a look at that. All right, let's look at the back first. You can see it's laying nice and flat. That's what you want to see. You don't want to see any pooling or stress balls, because that means it's shifted. But that's laying nice and flat. And you can see right here, my stitching is catching the bottom edge of the pocket bag. So from the front, that looks really nice. I really like it. And let's compare it to the other leg now. I'm just going to put them next to each other so you can see. So you can see I've got 2 pockets that look pretty identical. All right, so it looks like this binding is slightly wider than this one. I'm not going to worry about it for this pair because this is the first pair that I'm trying this on. I'm actually testing this pocket idea on my second muslin, so that's why this fabric is kind of wrinkly. This isn't the best fabric, but you want to make sure when you are sewing your pockets the binding is the same. Then this one is a little bit fatter than this one, you can see. So that's one thing to keep your eyeball on. But in any case, other than that, I'm really happy with the way these came out. Again, if you want to see how I drafted this right on top of the leg pattern piece, Check out J Stern Designs Pattern and Perfection Facebook group. I live stream my FabFit Friday most Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time when I'm home. So I did show how to make these pieces last week. All right, so that's the modern simple pocket idea I wanted to share with you today. If you have any questions or comments, please post them below. I will help you. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you again soon.